How are you?
Good. You are the interpreter. All right. So you're familiar with our device, right? I believe.
I was not, but I came 5 minutes ago and your colleague helped me.
Oh, really? Really? All right.
Yes, yes.
So here is your floor.
Yeah. It's the floor, right?
Yeah, that's a. നിങ്ങളുടെ നിങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന അല്ല അത് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു അവര് വേറെ കൊണ്ടുവന്നുണ്ട് അവര് തന്നെയാണ് So by doing in the floor to English, you have to choose
Portuguese and then
and
here.
if it is yeah, it's a roll of
Portuguese, then English.
yeah, you have to yeah, the floor is always yours
Right.
because there is no release system.
Of course.
So this on, I mean on.
No, it's switched off.
Yeah,
Okay.
green means switch off.
Okay.
All right. You can use the headset.
Big test. Hey, what do you want? Two.
They are outside.
Downstairs, upstairs. Right there. Right there. That stairs up there.
On top of the stairs.
Yeah, you just walked in those stairs. 1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine. All right.
Test. Audible? Clean. Oh, same audio you will get it from the.
Be any other language or just Portuguese to English?
Please.
Okay. Thank
Check
you.
it. Yeah.
all of them. Ah, it's working. Now it's working. You're just about to get the link. But this one is not working. This is not working. Ah, it's different.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to start in about 5 minutes, so we kindly ask you to find your seats. And mostly, if you are a country representative, we kindly ask you to move forward. And there's plenty of room in the first rows, so we will appreciate if you can move closer. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Not sure. That's for sure. So I think we were unique. So it's good. It's from Hanover.
Okay, now how much is it?
Ah,
How many people is it here? But in
yeah, I think we could something. And then you have others come in. And then on the presentation and confirm.
Okay. Why there's music for R&B? There's a bit of fourth person, can get a nameplate. Can encourage something you didn't do again before.
These are what we do. What shall I bring? Bring one. Okay.
It's a kind of recommendation for the people who sit in back in the room. So please come forward. We have plenty of room in the table on the tables, and yeah, it will facilitate the discussion and also your interventions when the time comes. We're starting in a few minutes. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now would like to kindly invite His Excellency, the Minister of Mines of Energy of Brazil, Mr. Alexander Silveira, to come to the main table, please. And while we're waiting, just an announcement. You are in room A1. This is the session of the Global Coalition for Energy Planning, the Agenda for Action. If you are looking for another event, also I'm afraid that to announce you that this is the wrong room, but yes. And while also we're waiting, well, I would like to also invite our Deputy Director General, Gauri Singh, to join the main table for the initial remarks. And just to give you a little bit of context for this meeting, today we're going to discuss uh, the how the Global Coalition on Energy Planning, which is an initiative proposed by the Brazilian presidency last year in the context of the Energy Transition Working Group, can support to enhance the energy planning capacities worldwide to facilitate the ways the countries can mobilize financing for the clean energy transition, how can the countries also can facilitate the attraction of investment for the clean energy technologies and the development of the energy infrastructure for the future. And also, while we're waiting, some housekeeping announcement or some logistical announcement. So for your convenience, simultaneous translation, simultaneous interpretation from Portuguese to English is available for this session. So if you are sitting at the table or near the tables, you can find your headset on the table. So please use it. I believe it's on channel number 1. And if you are seated on the rear part of the room, you can find the headset at the back of the room. So just a kindly reminder to leave the devices in the room before you leave, please. And also, um, maybe some also announcement about the logistic of the session. This session is planned for 90 minutes, and we are going to begin with some opening remarks from our authorities, the Ministry of Energies and Mines from Brazil, and our the Deputy Director General. Then we're going to move to a presentation by Irina that will explain the insights that, as Irina, we have been collecting on this topic, the nexus between energy planning and financing, based on the experiences from the work on energy planning with countries, based on the own experiences, and share some insights on this to set the scene. And after this presentation of Irina, we're going to move to a panel discussion, which is composed for experts from the financial sector and also from country representatives with vast experience on leveraging energy planning frameworks to mobilize finance or to attract investments. And after this panel presentation, we have planned or we have a segment for you to intervene. We have some pre-prepared interventions, but please feel free to raise your hand. Colleagues in the room will help us to pass out the microphones if you are seated in the back part of the room. And we also have colleagues that will help to make the order of interventions if you're here. And if you're on the table, you can see your microphones there, so you can just wait until the moderator called you to open the microphone. And we're just waiting for the ministry to come, so I apologize for the delay. Yes. No, thank you, Minister, for joining. We kindly ask you to join the main table. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for joining us. And as I was saying, there is a simultaneous interpretation in Portuguese and English. So please use your headset devices. And yes, so to start with the session, I would like to kindly give the floor to Ms. Gauri Singh, our Deputy Director General of IRENA, to provide some initial remarks on the presentation. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Excellency Mr. Alexander Silveira, Minister of Mines and Energy of Brazil, Excellencies, distinguished delegates and friends. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this very strategic discussion on the Global Coalition for Energy Planning. Today, actually marks a very significant milestone in our collective efforts to accelerate the global energy transition through robust energy planning frameworks. So, allow me to extend a special acknowledgement to His Excellency Alexander Silveira, who's here with us, because his presence here today also underscores Brazil's commitment to advancing global energy transition efforts and leadership in advocating energy planning. This meeting was developed in close collaboration with the minister's team, who led energy planning discussion at the Brazil's G20 presidency. So last year, global transition related investments reached a record of 2 trillion US dollars, highlighting the growing momentum in the energy transition worldwide. But at the same time, the world faces a critical challenge, and these investments remain disproportionately concentrated in a few advanced economies and a handful of emerging markets. Strong national energy planning frameworks are essential for accelerating energy transition investments, and our experience shows that well established institutional frameworks and coordinated planning processes are essential to building investor confidence, addressing risks, and offering predictability, which is critical, as we all know, for attracting investments and private capital. And this holds very true, especially for the global south and being able to direct investments there. So, through the years of leading international collaboration on energy planning, IRENA has deepened the knowledge and understanding of the diverse approaches that countries take in crafting the national planning frameworks to reflect their own unique circumstances. And this collaboration is exemplified by IRENA's global network on long-term energy scenarios, a network of national planning offices across different regions and development contexts. And I'm very glad to see many of our friends here who have really helped us develop this community. So this platform brings together champions of energy planning from 30 countries and 13 technical partners who have over the years facilitated the exchange of best practices and also innovative planning approaches. IRENA supports institutional capacity building in energy planning. For example, we collaborate with the African Union in enhancing the capacity of energy planning through the development of the Continental Power Sector Master Plan, or the CMP as it's known. And IRENA has been promoting regional cooperation through our planning and modeling support, working closely with international and African partners. So in this context, I would particularly like to commend Brazil's leadership during its past G20 presidency for elevating the role of energy planning in tackling global transition challenges, especially in proposing the Global Coalition for Energy Planning. Looking ahead, I invite all members to, and particularly those representing the Global South, to actively engage in shaping this coalition. Together, we can strengthen energy planning efforts and create the enabling environment that is needed to accelerate investment in energy transition. I'm confident that our collective action and shared expertise will strengthen national planning capacities worldwide, and in doing so, create a more equitable energy transition for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Alexander Silveira, Minister, to deliver his welcoming remarks, and they will be provided in Portuguese. So please use the headset if you are not fluent in the language. Thank you.
to submit, and we have Singh, our Vice Director of the National Agency of Sustainable Energy, our friends present. Over the past years, working for this is more than just a sector. This is an opportunity to build and to develop economically sustainable way and transition of energy, just and inclusive, generating social fruits, seeking global peace. In 2025, Brazil has two crucial international responsibilities. We are committed to strengthening global governance on cross-cutting issues which are of interest to all, such as the topic of renewable energy for global sustainability. We are honored and fully aware of the responsibility of presiding, hosting the BRICS and COP30. These two moments are highly relevant, just as the presidency of the G20 last year. As a leader in the fair, inclusive, and balanced energy transition, Brazil must propose progresses and improvements to meet this global demand. For this reason, and as a direct consequences of the progress in the G20, Brazil proposed and approved, in the presence of so many here, the creation of the Global Coalition for Energy Planning. The energy transition is concentrated in developed countries. We live in a single ecosystem, so there is no solution if the transition is segmented. It must be collective in everyone's interest. There is no salvation outside the new economy, the green economy. Developing countries need to participate in the movement simultaneously. Only in this way we will have a balanced and fair transition of energy supplying in global energy matrices. The Global Coalition for Energy Planning will help to close the investment gap in developing countries. If these countries do not have robust planning based on successful experiences with predictability, costs, and to attract capital, they will not advance at the speed which we are. We're talking about a need for a six-fold increase in investment. We believe it's an attainable range. To this end, the coalition works based on five principles. One, promotion of effective and transparent energy planning. Two, facilitate the exchange of knowledge and capacity development. Three, create favorable environments to create new investments. Four, encourage national protagonism and inclusive participation. Let it be very clear. The energy transition must take place in accordance with the sovereignty and characteristics of each nation. There is no fixed and mandatory method. Each nation has specific goals and situations that must always be respected. Thus, this is one of the pillars of our coalition. Five, enhance existing initiatives and partnerships. These are our principles. Using this mentality as a cornerstone, it is possible to show development banks multilateral institutions, and private investors that our effort is something solid and with growth potential. Now we need support from partners, countries, blocks, and international organizations. We want to establish this partnership with all the groups ready to reduce the energy transition distance between nations. Count on your support. Brazil took the first step by proposing the coalition at the G20. And today, we take the second step and formally invite Irina to be the secretariat and support the technical work of the energy planning. Irina is a worldwide reference in this topic and has our utmost respect. For this reason, we understand that it's the ideal partner to take this work. I would like to thank once again for everything that has already been said and for our unshakable faith in the usefulness and urgent need for creating the coalition, the global coalition. I take advantage of this moment as well, and I invite you all to be part of this initiative. Let's move from concept to practice as quickly as possible. I count on the support and participation of you, ladies and gentlemen. In the same way, always count on Brazil and the government of President Lula. Thank you very much.
To kindly
So much. And Excellency, allow me to say how deeply honored we are to have you show us the confidence of being able to lead this and be the secretariat for this very important initiative. And I do want to echo your words that the need for investment is huge. But at the base of it, if you have a robust energy planning mechanism, it does actually lead to getting in investments of that scale. So it's very much doable, as you did say. So I just want to thank you again and to say that Irina is fully committed and completely behind this effort. And I can't think of a better occasion for you to announce this, but because we have pretty much the very strong global community of energy planners who are with us today. So thank you again and thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you for your remarks and this important message that you just brought. And now I kindly ask you to take a seat on the sidelines so we can move forward with the session. Now, I would like to kindly ask Ms. Sami Niketa. She's the head of energy planning and power sector transformation of IRENA to provide an initial presentation to give you more insights about these topics.
Good afternoon, honorable ministers, excellencies, distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. We are very delighted to see that the cooperation between IRENA and Brazil that has occurred within the context of G20 now has led to this new exciting chapter of collaboration. So what I'm going to do today is to share the insights that we collected through the LTES network on the critical roles that energy planning has in bringing the investment for the clean energy transition. So let me give a brief description of what LTES. Gauri already mentioned that it is a global network of long-term energy scenarios practitioners, which is a very unique network of national energy planning offices. Currently, we have 30 member countries and supported by a number of technical institutions, including the IEA, World Bank, UNFCCC, and others. These are strategic importance for us. We focus on energy planning governance. What I mean by governance is we focus on 3 key points. The first point is how the countries are developing institutionally the scenarios that are used for policy development, particularly the process like participatory processes, the interministerial coordination. So these are the first focus. And the second focus is how the countries are using these scenarios to formulate policies. And the last part is how the countries are maintaining and enhancing the energy planning ecosystem to make the energy planning practice more robust and effective. And here, GCEP, the Global Coalition for Energy Planning, what this does is that it elevates the discussion to the high-level political agenda. And it also emphasizes and empowers the existing initiatives, regional initiatives, global initiatives, and creates synergies among these initiatives. It also aims to catalyze investment through the effective energy planning. I forgot to mention that we also, at the LTS, we engage the wider energy planning community through IRENA platform as well as the clean energy ministerial platforms. Like this one, for example, is one of the most important engagement platform for the LTS net. And increasingly, we are increasing the dialogues with the finance community. So now about the catalyzing investment through the energy planning framework. At the LTS network, that has been, from the very beginning, very important interest for the LTS members, how we can translate the long-term energy planning into the concrete investment. We have organized a number of dialogue sessions, technical sessions, high-level sessions. These are just examples of how we have been coordinating and discussing these important topics. And what I'm going to do is to present some of the statements or like experiences that were shared through these dialogues. And we synthesize these experiences that are shared throughout these dialogue sessions. So we have identified 9 points. We synthesize them into 9 points, which are categorized into 3 broader categories. One is enabling condition. The long-term focused energy planning can identify the needs for the regulatory and policy design, and it can also provide the important design, like policy design parameters for this policy and regulation. The second point is that long-term energy planning can anticipate the short-term bottlenecks in the whole value chain that is anticipated in the implementation of long-term plans. And most notably, grid constraints are one of the most important constraints, but it's not just that. We also think of critical materials and human resources constraints that need to be addressed. The third point is that it also empowers the governments to strategically assess the unsolicited investment proposals. So these are the three points that are under the enabling conditions. The second category is investor-ready plans. The long-term plans allow to create short-term and more concrete investment plans. And that includes creating pipeline of projects and also project bundling strategies, and also reflecting the realistic lead times. The fifth point is that the lack of financing strategies has been presented as one of the key missing points in many of the long-term planning documents. And we have collected lots of best practices that shows that the inclusion of financing institutions at the beginning and throughout the planning process is very effective in elaborating source of finance, as well as to ensure the effective implementation of the plans. Also, for the public financing institutions, having clear socio-economic benefits and impacts highlighted in these plans will help driving the investment. The last point, strong governance process, is very critical to bring investors' confidence. The point 7 is communication, clear communication of plans that helps investors understand the policy directions and also current and future market volumes technologies, and that reduce uncertainty for investors. 8 point, participation of wider stakeholders, not only to increase the ownership and to make the plan more robust, but it also helps to identify potential risks that exist in the wider society and help to mitigate these in advance. The final point is that well-coordinated planning governance is essential to make the plans more credible to the investors. Coordinated planning process, particularly energy and climate planning process, but not just that, also with other planning processes like transportation sector planning and digitalization strategy, is essential for increasing investor confidence. So finally, I would like to touch upon some of the key takeaways from the G20 Energy Transition Working Group process. We have heard that very strong emphasis was placed on the critical importance of ownership and national sovereignty in the energy planning process. And if that process is effectively implemented, it can create an enabling environment for energy transition that reflects their unique country circumstances. G20 countries are keen to engage this type of initiatives like GCEP because it can build and bring the G20 confidence in foreign investment through understanding the governmental planning process in investment-seeking countries. And finally, the discussion acknowledged that there are already some regional and international initiatives that are working excellently on energy planning, and it is essential to empower these initiatives through GCEP. So this is the end of my presentation, and I understand that Mariana will present more later, the key principles, and I really look forward to learning more about the key principles. Also, we look forward to hearing the feedback from the delegates, and we would really like to work together towards the launch of the energy planning, towards the launch of GCEP at the Energy Planning Summit that is planned in Rio in June. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asami, for the presentation. And now I'd like to move to the next segment of the session. It's the high-level panel discussion. And I would like to start by introducing our moderator for today's panel, Ms. Mariana de Assis Especie. She is a special advisor to the Ministry of Energy and Mines of Brazil, and she will be moderating the panel. And also, I'd like to kindly invite our panelists today to join the table. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Carl Christian Monk Nielsen. He's the director of the Danish Energy Agency. So if you kindly join us to the panel, and if we can give a round of applause as well. Right. And now I'll kindly ask Ms. Rowena Guevara. She's Undersecretary from the Department of Energy of Philippines to also join the discussion. Also, I would like to ask Ms. Claire Nicholas. She's Senior Energy Economist at the World Bank to also join the panel conversation. And as well, I will kindly ask Ms. Ariel Yepes, his Principal Economic Advisor at the Inter-American Development Bank, to join the conversation. So thank you very much. And well, Mariana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here talking on behalf of the Brazilian Ministry of Mines and Energy about the coalition and what we are expecting to do throughout this year and during the Brazilian presidency of this group. I first of all would like to open the floor and thank you, Juan Jose, by doing the introductions. We have here a group of senior specialists on energy and also financing, and we are really sure that the main activities that are going to be developed under the Global Coalition for Energy Planning will pretty much make the connections about those two topics. The importance of having energy planning for reducing risks for investments and also attracting good opportunities for countries in terms of project development and related to energy transition and so on. So I will not go any longer, but I kindly would like to listen from the panelists that are here with me today, some guidance and some contributions to some few questions. I will have this meeting conducting this in two rounds of questions that I would like to listen and from your experience and also from the implementation level and also for the financing level. How do you feel it's going to be connected? So I would go first with the country representative, as we have here the Denmark representative and also Philippines representative. I would like to listen from you some reflections about how is your country using energy planning as an effective tool for mobilizing investments within the national context, and if you would like both to make reference to any of the points that we are already considering in these contributions. We had from the talking points that Asami made previously, 9 well-established points. So we would like to hear a little bit more about these topics related to the enabling conditions, investor-ready plans, and also strong planning governance. So I will first begin by Ms. Rowena, if you would like to take the floor in starting your contribution. You change the order. Yeah, yes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share the country experience of the Philippines. The Department of Energy monitors and evaluates the progress and impact of its plan through the energy planning process. The planning process is divided into 4 stages: conceptualization, formulation, finalization and adoption, and implementation review. During the first quarter of the year, the department incorporates new directives and sets agenda goals, which include updating sectoral roadmaps and identifying target indicators. Once the targets have been identified, the department begins preparing energy demand projections, supply-demand balancing, and assessing energy resources and technologies. This stage of the planning process also involves consultations with attached agencies and industry stakeholders. In the third quarter, the energy plan is presented to the Secretary of Energy for approval Once approved, it's submitted to the Office of the President, and then information, education, and communication campaigns are undertaken, and copies of the plans are circulated to energy stakeholders. During the last quarter of the year, the department conducts implementation reviews, evaluates and assesses sectoral challenges, and conducts reviews of the sectoral roadmaps. Energy planning in the Philippines is driven by our renewable energy targets of 35% share in the generation mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. Policies were formulated for allowing 100% foreign ownership of renewable energy projects in November 22. We also have the use of the green energy auction to ensure offtake and recovery of investments for the RE developers. In fact, this year, we are undertaking 3 green energy auctions. The Green Energy Auction 3 for hydro and geothermal, Green Energy Auction number 4 for integrated renewable energy plus energy storage system, and Green Energy Auction number 5 for offshore wind in the third quarter of this year. We also developed the Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop to facilitate application, permitting, and consenting for RE projects across various government agencies. And for the first time, our government is again investing in offshore wind ports and the risking facility for geothermals. As a result, 90% of new investment in 2024 was in renewable energy. We have engaged our central bank for what we call the sustainable economy, and we have also engaged local banks to encourage them to invest in renewable energy. As with other countries, transmission development is the bottleneck. So we have decided to issue a policy on integrated renewable energy plus ESS in April 2023 as a stopgap for the lack of transmission. And as I mentioned, we will hold an auction for IRES in the second quarter of this year. Thus, energy planning in the Philippines have translated into investments in our renewable energy.
Thank you so much, Ms. Guevara, for such a comprehensive approach. We feel like Philippines is moving towards very important results in terms of energy planning and access to energy and electricity. Very, very inspiring. Now I invite Mr. Carl Christian Magnuson to make your comments and on behalf of the Danish government.
Thank you very much. Good to be here and good afternoon. I'm a director in the part of the Danish Energy Agency that handles governments and government corporations worldwide. And what I will talk to you about today is how we handle planning within Danish context in our own backyard. And I'll try to give you some insights in how robust energy planning facilitates investments in the clean energy transitions. The key point for me is creating a secure investment environment. I'll highlight 3 elements in how we do that. First, we make transparent long-term plans. Then we find the best spots for energy infrastructure. And 3, we ensure stable conditions. But let me elaborate a little bit more on 3 points. Transparent long-term plans. At the Danish Energy Agency, we publish a series of projections every year. We project the expected demand for energy and the infrastructure needed to meet that demand. We make projections regarding energy prices and technology developments. These projections are the foundation of our planning, and they are all publicly available. This way, all stakeholders have a common knowledge foundation when making decisions. The Danish TSO, the developers, the municipalities, banks, the pension funds, all have access to the same forecast and can therefore coordinate their plans. The level of detail needed in such a plan can vary between countries. Some places are highly detailed projections is valuable. Other places, things develop so fast that a clear direction is more useful than a highly detailed model result. But regardless of the level of detail, it's important to be transparent and share the plans so all stakeholders can pull in the same direction. This transparency helps to create secure investment environment. The second point I would like to raise is finding the best spots. What does that mean? Denmark is a tiny country. We live many people in a small area, so we want the areas to be utilized efficiently. Therefore, the Danish Energy Agency puts a lot of efforts into mapping out the best spots for energy infrastructure. We want to find the spots with conditions for wind and solar, where the demand is not too far away, when no endangered species are threatened, and where there are not too many people getting out. This might sound impossible, and we spent quite a lot of time finding these spots in collaboration with the municipalities. We'll do all this preparatory work so investors don't have to worry about it. And then the last point, number 3, stable conditions. When we have the plans, the market conditions are adjusted to ensure that green investments are good for business. In Denmark, the green technologies we need to reach out climate targets, but which cannot thrive on market terms, are given a boost through subsidies. An example could be building biogas plants or electrification of industrial processes, both subsidized. At the same time, the technologies that need to be phased out in order for us to reach Denmark's goal for climate neutrality in 2045, these are taxed. Denmark has, for example, adopted a higher CO2 tax on emissions from industrial sector than the rest of the European Union. Lastly, innovation funds have been established to support the immature green technologies we know that will be needed in 10, 20 or 30 years. One of the pillars of Danish policy development is broad compromises. When the last major energy agreement was adopted in 2018, over 90% of the Danish parliament voted in favor for the agreement. These broad agreements create stable conditions that do not change after each election. This again creates a safe investment environment. All in all, having transparent long-term plans, making thorough market assessments, and creating stable conditions create a secure investment environment, at least in Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is really important to see that many initiatives that is being taken into consideration by the government of Denmark reflects pretty much on what we also do in Brazil, and it is also really impactful by bringing investments to the right point. Thank you so much for sharing your experience on that. Now I will drive the discussions to the financial institutions, which we know that they have an important role in this process, but it is quite necessary to understand their needs and also which are the key aspects that, from the perspective of these financial institutions, should be taken into consideration while designing this process. So I would like now to invite Mr. Ariel and also Dr. Claire to bring your contributions on how can good national energy planning unlock the investment for energy transition and or facilitate access to climate finance. I will begin by listening to Dr. Claire. If you can please make your contributions. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Irina for inviting us to participate to this session. I think that Asami already set the stage quite well on explaining how good energy planning and plans that are well communicated and endorsed by government are critical to increase investors' confidence and attract the private sector. But one thing that is really important is that to be effective, these targets need to be credible. which means that the governance of the planning process is absolutely critical as well, and that the plans announced by the governments need to be discussed with the power sector actors. In our daily operations, we often see very ambitious plans and targets announced by governments, and when we go discuss with the utilities or the TSO, the transmission operator, we realize that their investment plan for the next 5 to 10 years is very, very decorrelated from the plans announced by the government, which is definitely an issue and impact the credibility of the government targets. And this is getting more and more critical as the power sector is very rapidly evolving. So not only renewable energies are being scaled up really, really rapidly, which means will have a really large impact, as mentioned by the Philippines and Denmark, on transmission needs and transmission investment needs. But also the unbundling process is going on in many countries. Lots of them are also transitioning to power markets, which definitely will complexify the planning processes. It was much easier when utilities were when the sector was vertically integrated. I'm not saying, don't quote me on that it was better and that it is better, but it was easier in terms of central planning. So indeed, good planning is absolutely critical to attract investment and also to assess what it will take to not only meet future power demand, but also to meet it while decarbonizing the power sector. And energy planning is something that is complicated. It involves a wide range not only of models, but also of expertise. And that is why we really do think that the LTES initiative and that the Global Coalition for Energy Planning are going to be tools to really drive the transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Claire, for bringing your inputs. And definitely, we do believe that the coalition has the potential just to shed light on these. When we talk about energy planning, we are not only talking about plans, about targets, we are talking about much more. And different layers of decision making should be taken into consideration from the short, medium, long-term perspective. And to couple all those things, it's the key to guarantee these, these reflections that the market and investors would like to have for making their decisions as well. So, Ariel, now I'd like to listen to you and your consideration and reflections from the perspective of the IDB. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks a lot to Irina for the invitation to the Inter-American Development Bank to participate in this important forum. And in order to address the question, what I would like to do is to talk a little bit about our experience in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the role that we as a development bank have in trying to support government efforts in order to face the challenges that they need to tackle at this moment when we talk. Latin America and the Caribbean is, to some extent, the greenest region when we talk about electricity generation at a global level. More than 50% of around 55 to 59% of the total electricity generated in Latin America and the Caribbean is renewable energy. About 50% of the total generation is hydro generation. And solar and wind generation has been between 3% up to 7%, depending on the year. In those few years, solve of the climate change, what we have seen in many countries in our region is that they are facing important challenges on their renewable generation, particularly with hydro generation. Dry years have reduced the possibility of facing the generation levels that they had in the past, many countries in the region, because of climate change. And many of the countries have been wondering about what to do in order not only to be more effective delivering the energy that the economies need, but also to bring more renewable energy in energy matrices. In fact, several countries of the region are in an initiative to bring not only the target of increasing the renewable energy generation above 55%, but also up to the level of 70% by the end of this decade. So that implies a lot of effort on the planning agenda, because it is not only about thinking what are all the instruments, technical instruments, institutional arrangements that we have to have if we really want not only to bring more renewable energy, but also to be able to supply all the electricity that is going to be required in the years to come. We have a problem there, because we have to have the technical capabilities in the ministries of energy or the energy agencies across the whole region, but also talking about having the right institutions and the right instruments to make this planning happening. And in that point, it is important to have strong institutions. That is critical. It is also, as a consequence of that, to have the right coordination instruments among the different agencies to make sure that everybody is talking with everybody, and that they are coordinating the way they are planning the different infrastructure investments that have to be done in the years to come to make sure that the electricity and the energy in general is going to be supplied in the amount that is required and in the mix that the different economies are targeting to bring to the. So this is a challenge. We're working with governments in creating the technical capabilities. Plus, we're working with governments in having the right regulatory and institutional frameworks that are critical in order to make sure that the electricity and the energy is going to be there at the same time and in the quantity that is going to be there in the specific. Institutions is important, but it's not enough. Having regulations is critical, is not enough. Having the right planning tools and the strong institutions to make that planning possible is also important, but it's not enough. What is necessary to have is to have an harmonious way to engage the institutions, the regulatory frameworks, the planning capabilities to make that happen. Additional element that is critical to make the investments happen in Latin America and the Caribbean, and I guess that is the same thing for the rest of the world. In Latin America and the Caribbean is that the investments from the private sector, in the energy sector in particular, in the last 10 years have been above 80%. The role of the national energy companies is important, but the role of the private sector is more critical at this moment. And if we want to have the right amount of energy in the years to come, we have to deploy the rules, the regulations, the instruments to make the private sector come to the energy sector and to make this sector attractive to them. And to have, it is critical to have credibility in the energy sector. One of the elements, as my colleague said before, it is important to have that credibility. Is not only the financial instruments, the risk instruments that we have to deploy in order to make it attractive to the sector, but also the planning. The planning is going to be the base for public and private sector agencies to make the investments happen. If you don't have any of them, if you don't have the complementarity among the all different elements that I was talking about before, it's going to be quite difficult to make those investments happen. And I will give you one simple example. We were working with a government in Latin America. The planning agency was fully aware about the energy needs that will be needed to tackle in the at least 10 years to come. They have the technical capabilities, they have the right instruments, they have the vision to make sure what is going to be needed in the energy sector in that country. But they lack something that was very important, the vision to make those investments happen. Even though the planning agency was convinced about how much energy will be required in the years to come, and also what were the kind of investments that had to be deployed in order to supply that energy, electricity in particular. The government was hesitant about who is going to make that or those investments happen. Is going to be the public sector? Is going to be the private sector? What is going to be the share of the private and the public sector? And in that discussion with Congress, years pass, and at this moment they are facing an energy crisis because even though they were aware about what was the investment needs that they had to tackle in the last 10 years, they didn't have this vision in order to coordinate the efforts of the private and the public sector to make the investments happen. And they are facing a huge challenge at this moment. So it's critical. Whenever we talk about planning, it's critical to have the right instruments, financial, regulatory, institutional, to make the investments happen. But if you don't have the adequate planning in order to identify what is going to be needed and required in the years to come, it's going to be very difficult to make those investments happen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ariel, for your inputs. And yes, you brought a very important point to the discussion, which is the need of clarity and the roles that should be taken by each part of this decision making process, and also how to engage different stakeholders in this agenda, and in a context where the things are changing all the time. We are in a very dynamic process, and talking from the Brazilian perspective, we are seeing and suffering also from these impacts on the change on the perspectives on hydropower and many other things. So this capacity of being adapted and to these changes is adaptive actually to these changes is really, really important. Thank you so much for bringing this. I would like now to, as a final contribution from this panel, I would like to request all panelists to bring up some ideas, thoughts, and also considerations about how can a platform like the LTES network and also the Global Coalition can strategically foster collaboration between national energy planning institutions and financial communities to mobilize clean energy investments. So I will open the floor, beginning by my colleague from the Danish Energy Agency to bring your initial thoughts.
Thank you. The model of the government, there can be a limited opportunity to interact peer-to-peer knowledge sharing activities. And here we see that international forums can work as a peer-to-peer network, such a platform. Knowledge sharing through the IRENA networks is creating a lot of value for the Danish Energy Agency. Forums where energy planners from around the world gather and share best practices really evaluate our work. The Global Coalition for Energy Planning, GCEP, is an excellent add on the LTES network, providing support for national governments by facilitating cooperation and capacity building through enhanced international cooperation, and thereby further strengthening national policymaking. Our engineers can have a tendency to focus on the technical aspect, and it could be interesting to invite representatives from the financial community into these forums such a meeting can enlighten blind spots and answer questions like, are the investment drivers we overlook when we make our national plans? How are national projections or the long-term predictions from IEA used by investors? In other words, how can you use our plans and how can we use your plans? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now would like to listen to Ms. Guevara thoughts about this topic.
Thank you. I think to achieve the goals set out by the Global Coalition for Energy Planning, we need to leverage on existing mechanisms and developing new instruments. For example, the utilization of the global network on long-term energy scenarios. By participating in this network, the Philippines can learn valuable lessons from nations that have scaled up offshore wind and other renewable energy projects. The exchange will enable our country to apply best practices, accelerate our renewable energy ambitions, and overcome challenges faced during the integration of these technologies. In addition, IRENA platforms such as the Climate Investment Platform and the Energy Transition Accelerator Financing Platform can be pivotal in supporting developing countries like the Philippines. These platforms will help align financing strategies with national energy transition goals. In addition to leveraging existing mechanisms, we would like to propose the development of innovative tools and initiatives tailored to the unique needs of the GCEP member countries. For example, a regional energy finance dialogue could be organized to connect energy planners, investors, and financial institutions, creating a space to discuss the necessary resources for advancing energy systems. This dialogue would bridge the gap between financing availability, and the specific needs of the energy sector in the region, particularly in terms of sustainable development and renewable energy projects. And second, a disaster resilient energy planning. Given the Philippines' vulnerability to climate related risks, we have 22 typhoons per year and we have earthquakes every day, and the rising sea levels. The GCEP could develop tailored tools and frameworks to help countries like the Philippines build energy systems that are resilient to these threats. Integrating disaster resilience into energy planning would ensure that energy systems are not only sustainable, but also capable of withstanding and recovering from climate shocks. And lastly, a knowledge exchange hub by establishing a centralized digital platform would allow for the seamless exchange of knowledge, policies, financing solutions, and capability building programs. The platform could also house an integrated data hub providing access to key statistics such as energy demand, renewable energy potential, and disaster risk. This data would be invaluable in supporting evidence based energy planning and decision making, enabling countries like the Philippines to craft well informed strategies that are responsive to their unique needs and challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your considerations. Really, really important to already take into consideration climate adaptation also in this process and in different ways. So really, really important to bring this up. Now, Miss Claire, I would love to listen your thoughts about this.
Thanks. I totally agree with what the two other speakers just mentioned. I think on planning governance, providing methodologies and tools and sharing best practices is going to be absolutely critical. As mentioned previously, the power sector's contexts are very different from one country to another, and so there won't be a one-size-fits-all planning governance, which is why this collaboration and cooperation will be very important to ensure that we all get better as the power sector is evolving. And it's not just like how to coordinate better between generation and transmission. It's also between the short term and the long term ambitions. It's how to make sure that the plans will happen, as you mentioned earlier. Private sector, we expect that the generation part of the energy sector, the power sector, will mostly be privately led in the coming years in most countries, which means that concessional finance or and regulation support will need to be rethought to ensure that the targets set by governments will be achieved. Another thing that will be critical in the coming years is capacity building. As mentioned also earlier by every speaker, energy planning is not something simple. It's something that is evolving fast, and so capacity building will be critical to ensure that whether we're talking about utilities or energy ministries, the capacity to plan is in the country, and the capacity to coordinate not only planning at the power sector level, but also with the rest of the economy, as the ambitions of many governments is to decarbonize the economy as a whole. So, yeah.
Very nice, really important points that you also brought to the discussions, and this coupling on short-term and long-term perspectives are also really important to highlight, as we have many caveats in this in between. So we need to be very attentive to address them properly. So Ariel, we would love to listen to understand your points as well. So you have the floor.
Thank you. I will talk only about something because the topics were discussed, and has to do with good practices that we have seen in some countries in, well, particularly Latin American, with some specific agencies who know a lot about it. What we have seen is that when we started working in Latin America and the Caribbean, deploying more renewable energy, to ask us, they wanted to increase their target 10% to 30%. Huge by that time. And that was a big challenge in order to not only to deploy the investments, but in the planning agenda was particularly difficult to think about how they will be able to bring such an amount of renewable energy and to have it in a complementary manner with a slow ET. We started thinking about different models. We asked the industry about different options that we had to identify to bring a practical solution to that country. And we ended up with that specific proposal. And they were successful. You know, after that country was the first one in Latin America, first of 26 countries in the region. We started getting requests from some other countries. But the good thing about that is that we had a very good experience in the past, and we started to some extent escalating what we learned from experience to bring it to some other countries. It was clear that every country is different, that the options to supply electricity are different in each country, but basically the models aren't that different. The good thing about this is to bring the best practices, to try to bring practical experiences from ministries and from agencies, and I want to talk about NREL, that they have been helping us a lot in Latin America to bring very good expertise to help countries in implementing appropriate models to plan the electricity from the years to come. But at the end of the day, is identifying the right models, bring it to the governments and to the ministries in each one of the countries, and to create the technical capabilities that they need in order to
so much. It was really insightful, and we couldn't agree more about the importance of having these capacity building and all the aspects that government should be ready and also institutions should be ready. All the topics really, really important. Well, we still have some time. It would be really nice to listen to some thoughts from the audience as well. So I would like to invite all those that are interested to propose and bring some ideas to the discussion to raise your nameplates. But I already have some contributions from the audience. I see Mr. Keisuke Sadamori from the International Energy Agency. And basically, what we would like to hear from you now is for countries specifically that want to make any intervention, what concrete actions are you taking to enhance your energy planning processes to attract investments? And for organizations that want to make an intervention, we kindly would like to listen to you about what specific energy planning approaches have you observed that are most effective at facilitating clean energy investment. So I'll start with Mr. Keisuke. You have the floor, and then I will go to the GIZ, Mr. Stephen Mayer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, accelerating the clean energy investments relies extensively on energy planning and international cooperation. I understand that your minister, Mr. Silvera, made remarks in FAS at the G20 ministerial meeting that we will fail in achieving our COP28 targets if we do not create the right enabling conditions. And I fully agree with that. And the energy planning is the one of those kind of conditions, especially for reducing investment risks and the cost of capital. So this aligns perfectly with the IEA's position. So just months ago, we released the Clean Energy Investment Roadmap to support Brazil's G20 presidency, outlining how to scale financing in emerging markets and developing countries. The report's first recommendation is on capacity building for national energy planning, and we applaud Brazil for recognizing its importance and responding to the G20's global call to establish the GSEP as an international platform for energy planning. So we thank both Brazil and ARENA for inviting the IEA to be a partner. So let me focus on two specific aspects. First, the national strategies must align with the multiple development goals, including the energy security, industrialization, just energy transitions, and the climate protection. And this requires capacity building on data, long-term energy scenarios covering all fuels and technologies, and also the predictable policies and regulations to create the investment-friendly environment. Long-term energy scenarios, LTES, are an excellent tool, and as a knowledge partner of the SEM LTES initiative, where we work closely with ARENA, we help share our experience in modeling to help countries develop their own strategies. Second, infrastructure is critical. We cannot integrate more renewables or the electrify end uses without timely grid expansion. So to meet the long-term climate goals, concessional finance for grids in emerging the economies and developing economies need to be at least a quadruple by 2035. The IEA has been working closely with Indonesia and Southeast Asia on network planning and the interconnections to increase cross-border power system flexibility and attract the investments. So we will continue this work through our newly opened Singapore Regional Center. The IEA accepts the invitation to be a partner of the GSEP and looks forward to continuing our close collaboration with ARENA, Brazil, and our international community to help raise political awareness on energy planning and promote the increased coordination. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, IEA, for your comments. Really important, and we really appreciate your support as well since the G20 activities and this year throughout the different challenges that we are going to assume, especially for COP30. Now I invite Mr. Stephen Mayer from GIZ, and then I would like to invite Mr. Jean-François Gagné to be ready for making your intervention from Clean Energy Ministerial. Mr. Stephen.
Thank you, Marina, and thanks, Arina, for inviting us here to the session. And I think from a technical implementation organization, just can underline what has been said so far. First, coming directly from a session that was called Innovative Risk Management Instruments over lunchtime, I think it is legitimate to say that it does not need always to be innovative, and what we've heard from colleagues so far, and would fully underline this from a technical implementation organization's perspective. Long-term energy planning is one of the most powerful and impactful risk mitigation action also for bringing private sector into investments into the energy sector, as when we see that governments have strong positions and clear planning that they stick to over a long time, that this brings definitely down investment costs. I also want to connect to something that Ariel said. We could not fully agree more to the need of strong institutions, and that is why we see that our capacity development for planning institutions in partner countries, even though it of course also takes a long time, is absolutely crucial and helpful, and is something that then also as a message to the donor community is something that needs to be further supported to make this long-term energy planning happening. Maybe message we observe as GIZ being finding or seeing ourselves in an honest broker position, and also not in an on-off relation to the partner countries, but really walking the talk with the partner countries throughout the years. It is, I think, important to see that long-term energy planning is, of course, based on data, and also we apply a lot of digital tools, and we feed this data, we collect this data, but also political interests are always part of long-term energy planning. And the more transparent also these interests are, the more, I think, easier to understand the direction of the planning and also the discussions, and then also the guidance for the private sector is more clear. So overall, capacity development, of course, applying new tools and looking what AI and data provide for speeding up the processes. But on the other hand, really long-term energy planning is also called long-term energy planning because it's a long-term process that requires to be flexible. And I want to end on also observation, being a German citizen, what is happening in Germany. We have our long-term planning, but also we need to react to things that sometimes happen unexpected. And actually in Germany, we're talking now about the battery tsunami. We have long-term energy planning for also short-term electricity, maybe planning new gas power plants. But now what we see in the development of storage could even jeopardize whole long-term energy planning. And of course, there again, also we see also in developed countries as well as in developing countries, long-term needs also flexibility. Thanks.
Thank you so much. You have mentioned a very important topic, and we are also seeing this need of adaptation, especially for some new technologies such as green hydrogen, for example, how to couple and adapt energy planning to all the prospects that we are seeing. And it's really adaptive, being adaptive and flexible is something that is really important. I now invite Jean-François from the Clean Energy Ministerial, but I really would like to encourage countries also that are interested on making interventions for this session to raise your nameplates. We have some colleagues here taking some notes to check, so please feel free to do that, and we will request you to do your intervention. So Jean-François, and then Nepad. I think it's Nepad. Okay. Jean-François, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Marina. Thank you, GSEP Secretary. Extremely G20 and SEM ministerial together. This was great because it allows us to deliver actual outcomes on three main priorities on investment, on fuels, and on inclusivity. And all of those have a link actually to what we're discussing today. You know, those levels where system solutions that include as part of this recommendation the concrete actions that we are forward, how to link planning activities to developments and to investment aspects. Yes. Your fuel side, we're looking at how we can plan supply and demand appropriately to make sure that we have the infrastructure. Social inclusivity, also looking at how you make sure that you bring in communities into the development of those long-term plans to actually have the proper social buy-in in terms of those social communities. We're extremely thankful for that. Continue to do that over the coming year, especially as we hope to host M16 in links to the discussions that we've had today. I was kind of taken by history. This is a focus on in different parts because energy ministers have a major part of it. You also need to
Thank you so much. It was really hard work, but very, very productive to see the results. And thank you so much for the Clean Energy Ministry support. I now invite NEPAD to make your comments. Please, you have the floor. And then the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Thank you very much. Agency. Patients to bring the results from fixed into the floor. It is sure that we have the future.
region, region. African, one thing. Raising from 250 to 1,200. It's just because renewables are taking already 63% of it, which is about 763 gigawatt of renewables. And if the nation agrees to say this planning has to be continental transmissions, that is interregional, not counting the internal member states. So it's big business, especially the institutions. So it's something which we have worked with. So when we look at the renewables, I think the biggest topic we should look at is the 1.5 degrees Celsius. If Africa decides to say, yes, we are ready to bring.
You so much for your contributions. Really, really inspiring to listen to your considerations. And I now would like to invite the representative from the IAEA. And then I see that the African Union Energy Agency requested the floor. I will just flag that we are ahead of time already. So if you could keep their intervention short so that we can do the closing and all the other final comments about the session. So the IAEA, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for joining organizing this event with this important events with IRENA, and thanks, congratulations for this progress made and their presidency of G20, and also the congratulations of the IRENA for this progress of the long-term energy scenario. And we are happy to be part of this one because agency possesses a suite of the energy tools, and disseminated them also provide capacity building among our 150 countries over the past more than 40 years. And we believe in a good position to support these global efforts. And to say is, we have a very good relation with other international partners in the past, including IRENA. Well, we are in the COP29, we just renew our memorandum with IRENA to reassure our commitment to work with them to support our countries. I think the colleagues from African Union just mentioned that it's a continental master plan. It's a good example to show how we work together with IRENA to provide our support using our complementary capacity to support the continental needs. And I would like to also mention that in the COP29, we organize these high-level party events with the COP29 presidency, focusing on the financing of low-carbon technologies. And during this event, we work together with other international partners to talk about how we can work collectively to support these needs in the energy transition. And also we signed the MOU with the COP29 presidency, focusing on energy planning. That's reflecting another effort we work with them to support their energy transition pathway. And we want to mention that we have to make sure this process should be inclusive, well, in addition to the transparent, because we believe we are not a luxury for using only one sources. We have to think about all the available resources to make sure the target can be achieved. So that's the information I want to share at this stage. So we are ready to support your initiative and will be part of this global efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are really keen to have the IAEA support in this sense. We really appreciate it. Now moving to the African Union Energy Agency, reminding that we are really concerned about the time, so to keep the intervention short.
First of all, my name is Rashid Abdullah, Executive Director of about the importance of the planning. I just need to highlight 2 or 3 points that it is important. See that Africa, I think energy statistic is a challenge. And if you are not focused or we put this energy statistic as a prerequisite for the planning, we are not achieving too much. So from Africa side, we are working with all member states. We are collecting data. State will process it, but we feel that there are some big gaps. So this initiative need to put more emphasis on how to enable the, at least in my region, the African country, how it will be capable to reporting and processing, disseminating the energy statistic. Without that, I think so that they can plan process. If they don't own the process, they cannot implement it. And this, I think, one of the issue need to be considered. And another thing also, that this initiative also to consider that energy planning is beyond only renewable energy. We need to have a planning, consider all the energy mix available, and to facilitate this energy transition. But we cannot forget what's the reality in the ground. In this very important, at least, I think we need also to consider the regional dimension. Of course, in Africa, we are calling for integration, and this integration we need, of course, to plan together while we are planning nationally. So, regional dimension and national dimension, it is very important in this process. From Africa side, we are welcoming the initiative, and we're really very happy to support as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments, and the topics that you have raised makes a close connection to what we are going to talk by as closing remarks for this session, and how Brazil is planning to frame the activities for this year. As per the presentation that was made by Irina, we have discussed and talked about so many different aspects. And one of the things that I would like to highlight here is that this coalition activities is going to be the coalition activities are going to be framed by this set of principles that you are seeing in the screen. And we really would like and encourage countries to have an in-depth conversation that we are going to host during this session under the Arena Assembly on Monday, 13th, because we really would like to have a moment to showcase to you and explore a little bit more on how these principles, in our view, are going to take place under the coalition activities. And one of the aspects that you have brought was just the aspect on having the national ownership of this process. The idea is to have this as an opportunity for countries having their own perspectives, their own national circumstances, and having their own mechanisms to implement, to design, and also to talk, to have all the perspectives when talking about energy planning in different levels, and thinking about the regulations that should be put in place, and many other processes that we know that might be very typical for each country. For example, participatory processes in this sense and many other things. We really believe that transparency in data availability is key for guaranteeing this effective energy planning. So we would like to discuss and take advantage of some existing good practices to make this knowledge sharing in this environment of cooperation and also capacity building, because as we were all discussing here, we are in a changing environment, dynamic, very challenging for many different ways, from the financial perspective into the implementation perspective, different social contexts, and many other things. And we need to take it all into consideration while designing policies and supporting countries in this sense. Investments, they are really needed, and we really would like to bring financial institutions to follow up these by building up the basis for the coalition, because we really understand that private banks, multilateral banks, and also national development banks, different level of stakeholders, including philanthropists, should be also listened in these processes so that we can, of course, address their perspectives as well in this process under the energy planning. We really believe that we have many activities already, nice activities in place, such as the LTES, many bilateral cooperation that we know that is already in place for many different countries, many multilateral fora that are also supporting, many multilateral banks that are also supporting, and we do believe that this all together should be taken into consideration to find out the synergies and how can we work together. Why Brazil is bringing this to the table? Of course, we are going to host COP30 this year. We do have all committed. We have all committed actually to deliver more ambitious NDCs, and we need to think about the next 10 years, how to implement them, how can we make it happen, how can countries really move a step forward in this regard, and we are really keen to support countries in this sense. So we will really couple the activities into as part of the COP agenda, the coalition as part of the COP agenda. More information is about to come. We are just at the beginning of the year, but you can count on Brazil to have and take advantage of different international fora to bring these discussions and to move forward in this sense. One important step forward in this regard will be taken in Rio de Janeiro in June this year, where we are going to host the first Global Energy Planning Summit. And we invite you all to be part of this discussion with us and to join us in this sense. Asami, I think I have covered it all. And also, Juan Jose, I know that we are ahead of time, but I hand over to you so that we can move to the next steps.
Thank you very much, Mariana, and thank you for all the panelists. So I would like a big round of applause for panel discussion. Thank you very much. We have the certainty that all your contributions will shape this initiative's future. And now, to conclude this event, I would like to give the floor to Roland Roche. He's the director of Innovation and Technology Center of IRENA for the final remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan Jose. Excellencies, delegates, distinguished guests, let me begin to express the gratitude of IRENA to all our speaker and participants for their valuable contributions today. The discussions have highlighted critical importance of robust energy planning frameworks in accelerating the global energy transition. So global investments important for the energy transition. As we have heard throughout today's discussions, the investment challenge before us is substantial, but so are the opportunities. So let me put in scale our challenge in perspective. The estimates from IRENA, from our World Energy Transition Outlook, show that we need $150 trillion in investments by 2050. And if we take, let's say, really the infrastructure and more into account, this figure could be even higher. Such magnitude makes one thing clear: public funding won't be sufficient. So the multinational development banks would not be able to bring this amount of money. This leads us to three fundamental considerations about mobilizing the necessary investments for the global energy transition. The scale and pace of investments are substantial, but we also feel it is achievable. There is a clear need for both, let's say, to involve public and private sector engagement and funding. Also, opportunity exists across the markets of all countries. Building here on the very important G20 momentum under the presidency of Brazil, the important developments that sets the foundation for our work here to move forward. So the Brazilian G20 presidency identified energy planning as the key to unlock the investment, so identified the need for synergies and alignment in the field around the world, which leads directly to the proposal of the Global Coalition for Energy Planning. This high-level recognition elevated energy planning from a technical exercise to a strategic enabler for sustainable development and also for the investment mobilization. And here the strategic enabler comes also by broadening the participation, let's say, in this planning work IRENA is doing, bringing G20 members in, but also make sure we have discussion on the table between the countries that are in the need of investments and the countries that are willing to invest in other countries. Let me highlight some concrete examples of how effective planning translates into reduced investment risks. The recently published IRENA report examining Brazil's experience shows how strategic partnerships between national energy planning institutions and the Brazilian Development Bank, BNDES, created a successful model for investment attraction. The report that has been prepared for the G20 presidency highlights some key elements that should be considered. Strong institutional governance that facilitates the strategic collaboration between the financial sector and the planning institutions can reduce significantly the investment risk and provide clear signals to the markets and investors, and thus helps to reduce the capital costs and make the investment cheaper and to reduce the weighted average cost of strategic collaboration for public and private investment can leverage the mobilization of private capital by creating the right enabling environments, and also robust long-term planning capacities can effectively create proper market structures and stable regulatory frameworks to reduce the uncertainties and create the tangible investment opportunities and the bankable projects so strongly needed in this energy transition. The evidence is clear. Effective planning directly reduces the investment risks and, as said, thus also the costs of capital. Value proposition here for different stakeholders. What makes this initiative particularly powerful? It is its value for all participants in the energy transition. For instance, for countries with established markets, some of them benefits are a better understanding of global investment opportunities, access to new partnership models, enhanced planning frameworks for their own transition. Similarly, some benefits for emerging markets are the investment attractiveness, risk reduction, the lower cost of capital, more private investment flows, and also institutional capacity to transform the national priorities into bankable project pipelines with the necessary regulatory framework. Let me conclude my reaffirming IRENA's commitment to this initiative, which has been and is extremely important for IRENA to support this initiative. IRENA stands ready to build on proven track record in energy planning support, leverage our extensive network of planning practitioner, mobilizes, as it has been discussed here today, also by the intervention, mobilize our partnership with financial institution, but also with the strategic partners that here are in the room. It's been mentioned, Auda NEPAD, the IAEA, to the GIZ. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to working together on this important initiative with all of you. Thank you very much for this good event.